adjacent to the magic zone and reality zone. A dimension where your train ticket leads you to the paranormal, and the unnatural lies just in the tracks. Down in that tunnel, an ex-actress is possessed by a demon. Down at the station is an exorcist trying to reach her. The cause of these events is a poor review, deserving to be corrected. Your next stop, the Twilight Railroad Adventures. Okay, before you ask any questions, no, I am not planning to make a crossover series of the Magic Road Adventures and the Twilight Zone, and no, the whole Mar Wilson versus the Nosferatu cricket demonic possession element wouldn't be an episode in the series if I did plan to develop this series. I just created this segment because I wanted to, and the timing is appropriate. Well, was appropriate. I was going to offer the chance to have anyone try this new series idea as an experimentation, but I decided to wait until the Magic Road Adventures released a few more episodes, so as not to risk the Twilight Railroad Adventures overshadowing the MRA. With that said, let's dive into the Q's and A's. Okay, so our first YouTuber with the question is Noah B, and his question is, did I watch Tobias and the Half Pariah? As a matter of fact, I did. Another question related to this subject will be coming up, so I'll wait before I say anything else. Okay, that's it for Noah B. Next YouTuber is Lyric Bob Dragon, and his question is, if you were an engine, what type and model would you be? I'd like to be an S160 class locomotive, because that specific class of locomotive was built for purposes in both the US and the UK, and as my devotion is divided to the heritage of both countries, it was a good pick for me. It's also the only American engine I'd like to see on Sodor in the TV series. Apart from an S100. That's not pink. Okay, that's also it for Lyric Bob Dragon. And the next person with the question is the Gene497. And his first question is, what are your thoughts on Tale of the Brave? I really think it's one of the best specials to come out of Hit Entertainment yet. Of course, I'd have to thank Andrew Brenner and ARC Studios for their efforts, don't we all? The storyline's great, the characters are portrayed well, and the visuals are eye-catching. There's also a lot of elements that I'd never expect to see in Thomas and Friends. For starters, monsters everywhere. It's kind of a representation of your imagination running away from you, kinda like Boo Boo Choo Choo, but did they have to put this sequence in?
Look out, they're all about. Where? Look out, they're all about. Where? Look out, they're all about. Where? Oh, that's not so scary.
It doesn't feel so Thomas-like. It feels more Disney-like. In fact, let's play some tunes from Disney movies and see how much this sequence relates to them.
Look out, pink elephants on parade. Here they come, hippity-hoppity. They're here and there.
What'll I do? What an unusual view.
Now how about this?
A heffalump or woozles very slides. They come with ones and twos, but if they so chooses, before your eyes you'll see them multiply. They're extraordinary, so better be wary, because they come in every shape and size.
You see what I'm saying? Other elements that I'd never expect was James being the main antagonist. Sure, he's been arrogant in the past with some popular episodes, but to have him as the main bad guy in a special? You would have thought he was an actual villain, particularly with his entrance at the clay pits.
Hello, scaredy engine. Sorry, Percy.
Let's replay that with a little bit of a more menacing music.
Hello, scaredy engine. Sorry, Percy. I shouldn't have said that. Hello, scaredy engine. Sorry, Percy. I shouldn't have said that. Hello, scaredy engine. Sorry, Percy. I shouldn't have said that. Hello, scaredy engine. Sorry, Percy. I shouldn't have said that. Hello, scaredy engine. Sorry, Percy. I shouldn't have said that. Hello, scaredy engine. Sorry, Percy. I shouldn't have said that. Hello, scaredy engine. Sorry, Percy.
Well, I know he's not a villain, and he does own up in the end. He just thinks himself better than the others. As usual. Perhaps the best unexpected element has to be the ending. Everything about the ending is perfect. The emotion the characters are going through, the touching realization of the situation, the clear message that's expressed, the beautiful music that's playing, and the whole thing closing on a sunset over the sea. It's just so touching and beautiful, it could make people cry. In fact, it did. A lot of people were so affected by the scene that they commented that they got teary-eyed. Not that I'm saying it's wrong, it's just to prove the fact at how powerful an ending can be in Thomas and Friends. In fact, this is the perfect ending to conclude the penultimate Railway series book. If Christopher Audrey didn't decide to end the Railway series at Thomas and his Friends. Next question. What's your opinion on Tobias and the Half-Pariah? This is the question I mentioned earlier in the video, and I have to say, unlike Tale of the Brave, I have divided feelings about it. I could make a whole video on my review on this fan film, but all that I have to say has already been expressed by Nikon Aqua Magna, if I pronounced that right. However, since I've been asked to share my opinion on it, I'll try to say most of what I want to say in brief sentences and in my own words. At first, when I saw the intro, I thought it was going to be true to the Railway series story of Toby the Tram Engine and dive deeper into Toby's first year on the NWR. However, as the film went on, my interest in it declined. Notably when Toby is asked to move a 30-car train out of a siding, when any other engine could move it in sections, and at the fact that Gordon is antagonizing Toby instead of James. It really went downhill when Toby actually pulls Gordon in an express at 40 miles per hour starting from the slope of a hill. What the hey? Oh, and also the fact that engines introduced in later stories after Toby's intro appear to have been on the island even before Toby arrived. For example, Lady, Oliver, Donald, Douglas, Bill, Ben, and several fan-fictional characters which I have little to no idea who they are, what their characteristics are like. My hopes for this film being entirely good were dashed when I found out who the villains were, Duck and Oliver. From that point on, I got much disappointment. I was shocked to see what Gordon caused to Toby and the Express. Even a big pompous engine such as himself would go to some lengths to get back at Toby out of spite, even to getting his crew to help him with his dirty work. Which reminds me, how is it that Toby can pull the Express at such speed and with such strength? Oh wait, spoiler alert! He's actually part diesel. What the hey? You take a 1914 tram engine, one that's beloved by everyone for his uniqueness as a steam tram, and you put half of a diesel engine into him? This is blasphemy to the Reverend W. Audrey and the Wispy line. And where did he get that engine, you ask? From Duck. That's right, Duck was originally a diesel engine, yet somehow, after a freak accident with Toby, the worksmen decided that they want to convert Duck into a steam engine. Why? The whole point of diesel engines was to replace steam engines. Why would anyone want to downgrade a diesel to an outdated method of motive power? There's no logical reason behind that. I'm not saying that I'm a diesel buff, I'm a steam buff, but still, it doesn't make any sense. Well, if you would look at it from my point of view, it should have been that the spirit of that diesel just accidentally transferred itself into a steam engine and mistakenly accused Toby for being the fault of that. It's more logical that way than to just having to convert a diesel locomotive to a steam engine. Plus, it might explain why Duck has those demonic-looking eyes as a steam engine in the first place. And for those of you who think, what, trains mixed with spirits? Come on! You have to remember that Thomas and Friends was created by the Reverend W. Audrey, a reverend, a man who believed in God. And if you have that, then why not mix in spiritual elements with the Railway series? I'm going to add that element to the Magic Railroad Adventures in later episodes, so it's plausible. But I digress. If you thought Toby being half diesel and Duck originally being a diesel and now a psychopathic steam engine was bad, the finale of the movie wasn't much of an upliftment either. I mean, steamers versus diesels. That element is just as old as the locomotion. We're trying to steer away from that with new Thomas episodes. It doesn't need to be brought up anymore. True, there can be some devious characters, such as Evil Diesel and Diesel 10, but we don't need another fight between steam engines and diesels. Remember calling all engines? So, I stated all the bad points of this film, now let's get to the good stuff. I do admire the landscapes and locations. They make this world seem believable enough to be an actual part of the Thomas universe. I also like the music and some of the personalities that the characters have. For instance, we see Toby shocked to be on such a big railway the first time he's on Sodor. He's worried that he might not be good enough for the railway and that everyone will think him strange. That happens to a lot of people, especially students who are entering a new school. However, Toby does hold a grudge against the others out of fear of being rejected for what he is, and that's noted a lot throughout the film, up to the point where you just want to say, "Oh, stoke it into your firebox, Toby, and get your steam up!" Another good thing to note is the music. Every theme fits the scene perfectly, and doesn't require any change. I mentioned this before in the comments section of the actual video of this fan film, but I'll say it again. I think this movie has some good parts, but it could do with improvements. For instance, I'd have original characters instead of the Thomas characters, so that it doesn't interfere with Audrey's original history of his railway. Let's replace Toby with the first diesel-electric hybrid built. Why? I'll get to this later on. Now let's take Montague. Replace him with an engine with similar shapes, meaning something that looks like a diesel but is an electric, or vice versa. Let's have the steam engines and diesels be background characters. Now, I know what you're thinking. Where am I going with all this? Well, I'm giving out a more realistic interpretation of the story. We've already used steam engines as the main hero in several Thomas movies. Couldn't we at least have a diesel for a hero? A diesel would be, understandably enough, worried that the steam engines won't accept the diesel for what he is, because, let's face it, he's more different from a steam engine than a steam tram, and more freakish for that matter. And as for the villain, Why not make the villain a diesel who was originally an electric engine, but became a diesel after a freak accident? It makes more sense, seeing how several diesels and electrics look the same on British railways. It's also plausible that a diesel-electric engine would be the most powerful engine built, as they have been a huge success over the years. Sure, we've had steam diesel hybrids, but those never were really successful. Throw in some electric engines as the bad guys and you've got the perfect presentation of Tobias and the Half-Pariah. We've had too many stories of steamers being the heroes and diesels being the villains. Couldn't we have a story of steamers and diesels fighting against the electrics? It's high time that the electric engine should be made into a villain on this show. Oh, and one more thing. Throw out the cussing and add in more realistic railway practices.
I didn't ask for your opinion.
Well, too bad for you. I gave it anyway. Let's get on with it. Okay, next question. What are your favorite episodes from Season 18 of Thomas and Friends so far? Old Reliable Edward, Not So Slow Coaches, Toad's Adventure, Duck and the Slip Coaches, Duncan and the Grumpy Passenger, and Marion and the Pipe. Since I spent so long on the last question, I'll try to make these answers as brief as I can. For Old Reliable Edward, it's the humor that's put into the story, and the fact to see Edward as a main character after so long. Not So Slow Coaches? Thomas being cheeky again after who knows how long, and Annie and Clairbeau having major roles. Toad's Adventure? Just seeing Toad and Oliver return. Duck and the Slip Coaches. Learning a bit about Duck's past and seeing Emily get her comeuppance for replacing Duck. Duncan and the Grumpy Passenger? The visuals, especially in the intro. Plus, the Grumpy Passenger makes me think of my older brother in about 30 years or so. And Marion and the Pipe? It's the face Thomas makes. So hilarious. Next question. What is your favorite book from the Railway series? This is a really difficult question for me to answer, as I love all of them. I grew up reading Reverend Audrey's stories from the Complete Collection edition of 1996. It wasn't until 2007 that I read all of Christopher Audrey's stories when the new collection was released that year. And it looks like the only year the new collection was released. What's up with that? Christopher Audrey's books are a part of this series and tradition too. I mean, why is it that not much attention is paid to his stories? All his stories have had limited publications and have been compiled into one collection book release, and the books his father wrote? They've had 4 collection book publication runs and 3 box set releases. What's wrong with Christopher Audrey's works? They are a part of the Audrey Thomas heritage too. It deserves no less than the stories that Wilbert wrote. Christopher Audrey took up the pen in 1984 because his father stopped writing on account of no ideas left. So Christopher, fresh with new ideas, continued on where Wilbert left off, and he had his father's blessings for it. That at least makes Christopher's stories deserving of more respect than what he receives. I'm sorry that Christopher Audrey decided to end the series at Thomas and His Friends. I think that the series would have had a lot more potential if those blasted publishers weren't so restrictive! You can't even find the Railway series in American bookshops anymore. Literally, I've been to several Barnes & Nobles and haven't found one complete collection of the Railway series on their shelves. All we get are paperback and hardcover books that are either original stories or based off of telly episodes, big books based on the specials, sound books, and coloring activity sticker books. Honestly, people would be better off finding the Railway series books on eBay than at Barnes & Noble. So like I said, I love all the Railway series books, so I don't really have a favorite. But if you really want to know, I'm currently interested in Thomas and the Great Railway Show. I think that book, as well as Thomas Comes Home, has a potential for being a Thomas special. Yes, a special, not a series of episodes. If you would like me to explain why I think this, please request for a video in the comment section below. In fact, a lot of Railway series stories now have potential of appearing on the TV screen. Now that CGI is being used, you could adapt the stories that were never adapted, and we'd be introduced to characters like Bear, the Mountain Engines, the Small Railway Engines, etc. That could bring the Railway series back to popularity. Oh, but that's right. Hit Entertainment has this policy which Sodor reading between the lines states, and I quote, "Rights held by Hit do not and cannot include the intellectual copyright of the creators of the characters." Unquote. Yeah, you might want to eliminate that policy, Hit, because it's really ticking us Thomas fans off. Next question. Who is your favorite character from the Railway series? Well, since I mentioned my favorite characters from the TV series, I won't dive into much detail about some of the characters you're already familiar with. You know, I like Thomas, Percy, Toby, and Duck. Okay, Duck I didn't explain much about, other than the similarities we share in terms of the work with no fuss. Duck has a strong respect towards the heritage of his first railway, and I like that about him. Duck knows his stuff from the Great Western Railway and is proud of that. He also has an interesting story to tell or two, if the other engines can put up with it. I also like Bear, Pip, Emma, Wilbert, and 16. Bear is a nice friendly diesel who I wish we could see more of. He's a fine example of friendly diesels. He defends the steam engines against the diesels who think they should be scrapped. Pip and Emma are also nice friendly engines. I think they have much potential in the television series. Certainly more than those Yank streamliners. Wilbert, being named after the Reverend, is another engine I like. He's a friendly engine, hardworking, and pays good attention to the others, while 16 is his total polar opposite, which also makes him enjoyable. I think at one point, 16 was a popular engine amongst fans, but I think that seems to have died off now. Either that, or I don't know, I'm not fully aware of what's going on in the fan base. Next question. Who is your favorite narrator from Thomas and Friends? Ringo Starr. Again, like Thomas, Ringo is the first storyteller we fans are introduced to, at least in English-speaking countries. There's a particular charm that is in the narration of Ringo that a lot of us enjoy. I know he was hesitant to be involved with this production, but hey, I guess Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds helped him. After all, he was on a train in a station with plasticine porters. In case you're wondering, here's my list of narrators, starting from most to least favorite. Ringo Starr, Pierce Brosnan, Alec Baldwin, George Carlin, Mark Morrigan, Michael Angelis, and Michael Brandon. Next question. What are my thoughts on the Magic Railroad being included on the new Sodor map? I'm glad that there are now possibilities of the Magic Railroad being featured in official Thomas products again, but while I'm glad that they've put the Magic Railroad locations on the map, I have to be frank, I'm not so impressed by the pinpoints of the locations. Same goes to the rest of the map. I look at this and quite honestly think it's a cluttered mess. Because of all the new places that were introduced into the TV series, I feel as if this map has just too much locations marked down on it. I mean, the island needs to breathe. Give it some air. I was okay with the maps prior to this one, but this one just has too much information on it. Maps like this one are meant to show the railway routes, roadways, cities, and towns, natural environmental placements, etc. Not every blasted farm, bridge, estate, locomotive sheds, and buffer stop featured on this whole island of Sodor. If you wanted to tell us where certain locations are, such as McColl's farm, couldn't you at least give us a map with, a list with the names of the places and the nearest town they're in? Plus, I'm a bit worried that the terrain and natural obstacles weren't fully considered for the creation of this map. Certainly the track layout could do with a lot less jackknife points, hairpin curves, and scullery railway trackage. As for the Magic Railroad, I don't think that the buffer should be placed on the southernmost part of Sodor. According to my theories concerning the conductor family having to travel from America to Sodor, I'd say the pinpoint of the magic buffers would in reality be... Oh no, you don't. I'm not revealing any info on the location of the buffers to anyone. Any bad guy might find it and just... Wait. Oh! I get it now. They're purposely pinpointing the wrong location of the buffers so that the buffers can be safe. They're protecting the real magic buffers while the bad guys locate the wrong buffers. Ha! Crafty. Well, that doesn't mean you should still give the pinpoints to the buffers. Buffers should not be marked out on an island map, no matter how important they are. Remember what Mr. Conductor said?
Don't talk to anyone about the buffers.
Couldn't have put it better myself. Next question. You could travel through time to any event in railroad history. Where would you go and why? I'd say the Great Locomotive Chase of the American Civil War in 1862. Why? So that I can take proper photographs of the engines used in the chase so that everyone would know what they really looked like back then. Next question. Which editing software do I use? I originally used Corel Video Studio Pro X2. However, that continuously crashed on me right when I'm in the middle of working on a new video file, so I recently got the new Corel Video Studio Ultimate Pro X7. The most powerful video studio yet, and it comes with autosave. As a matter of fact, my previous questions and answers video was the first video I made with my new software.
Let's start off.
Next question. What is your favorite Thomas and Friends special movie? I have 4. Thomas and the Magic Railroad, The Great Discovery, King of the Railway, and Tale of the Brave. Some of you might say, come on, Thomas and the Magic Railroad was terrible. It should never have been made. It was the reason why Thomas went downhill. Why should you like it? Well, I think that Thomas and the Magic Railroad is misjudged by those of you who think that. I think that it deserves much more respect than that. After all, it was heavily edited before its release, and that was due to the force of the test audience. I think that the story that Britt Allcroft wanted to tell counts, not the story she had to release. And for those of you who thought Thomas and the Magic Railroad was the cause of the Thomas downfall, remember that some of the classic series stories weren't all that good, starting with the Season 3 episodes, some of which weren't actually stories based on the Audrey stories. I think Thomas went downhill when they started diverting to original stories, which weren't really original stories at all, they were just adapted from magazine stories, which Andrew Brenner wrote. Try to answer why they adapted magazine stories instead of just using more Audrey stories. I'm pretty sure there were a number of Audrey stories they could have used. Also, remember Season 5 and all the one-off characters that series introduced? Yeah, Derek and Bertram never appeared in any more episodes. Remember the last time we saw Boulder? Who here remembers the horrid lorries? And while we're on the subject, not a lot of episodes from the classic series were realistic, and that made them somewhat silly. For example, No Joke for James, Henry's Forest, Rusty to the Rescue, Rusty and the Boulder, and Toby and the Flood, to name a few. Plus, there was a time before the Magic Road movie that Hit wanted to buy the Thomas copyright, but Britt smartly refused. Perhaps if she wasn't forced to edit Thomas and the Magic Railroad, Thomas wouldn't have been bought by Hit. Come to think of it, If Hit wanted to purchase the copyrights before Thomas and the Magic Railroad and were unsuccessful, but were successful after Thomas and the Magic Railroad was released, maybe executors from Hit were in the test audience. Just a hunch. What I'm also glad about Thomas and the Magic Railroad is that it ties in two well-beloved creations together, Thomas the Tank Engine and Shining Time Station. Also, Thomas and the Magic Railroad can actually provide a lot more elements to explain some mysteries, as I have done in the prologue. Did anyone else before me actually consider how the trains on Sodor could really talk? Trust me, it's all in the coal. Sodor coal. But for those of you who still refuse to believe all that I've said about Thomas and the Magic Railroad, scrap you! I don't give a shunt to what you say. I don't know what fans think of The Great Discovery, but I think it's a decent enough special to like, and probably the only good thing to come out of Sharon Miller's mind. What really brought this special to life is the music and narration of Pierce Brosnan, which is the only narration you'll hear from James Bond in a Thomas story. King of the Railway was a sight for sore eyes for several fans, having been written by someone who actually knows the Thomas material and also had a railway consultant with him. Tale of the Brave shows that Thomas is still on the right track in terms of specials anyway.
A young girl has wandered onto the wrong train, but neither she nor her parents can know just how far her travels have taken her. Help her find the right train, won't you? For it's a very long journey back home indeed, on a Twilight Railroad adventure.